Pete, you started pretty early. You used to race BMX, right, when you were a kid? Never did?
I'm a skateboarder, snowboarder that hurt himself, and then when I was 22, I found a bicycle, or 21, I found a bicycle.
There we go.
So I'm a late bloomer, right? I guess technically, and I started with like the C's here in Reno. You know, the 25-minute races.
You were dead slow too,
and I was really slow. I was not fast when I started, for sure. I was definitely behind the curve. And just slowly but surely, I probably bit off more than I could chew and started doing like the week-long training camps with the UNR team, and where you just go ride 600 miles because
bury yourself.
Yeah, you just buried yourself. And when you're young, when you're in your mid-20s, you can do that, and your body responds to it. And if you eat right and recover correctly, like you can load a lot of stress on your body, and you'll be okay. I would say one of the things that stuck out to me the most with this question is it's not really about if they train harder than you or if they're more naturally talented than you. Bike racing is one of the few things where the person who wants it the most has a better chance, right?
Yeah,
for real.
So it's not only, train hard, do everything you can, but when it comes to racing or whatever your event is, like you have to want it the most. You have to suffer the most, and that's the difference. It's most of the guys at the top level are all the same. It's the person who suffers the most that gets it.
Yeah. Chad, when did you start? What age did you start training for bike?
I rode BMX since I was a little kid. I didn't race, but my friends did. So I'd go to the track with them, and I'd kind of try to follow along. So I got a little exposure to it, but nothing that qualified as racing or conditioning really. But a familiarity with being on a bike and turning pedals over a lot. I mean, that started when I was probably 5 years old, and never stopped. There was never a gap. But I didn't start taking it seriously until I was about 18. So I don't consider myself a latecomer or an early bloomer.
Right.
I'm not sure what word I'm looking for there, but
But
I've had a lot of exposure to it, and the conditioning aspect of it started at a pretty young age. I mean, at 18, that set the stage for, being a fast masters rider, because I had, nearly 20 years of this sort of work in my legs, in my body.
Yeah, like time certainly does help. Like you can't ignore that, right?
It does, but I do want to make it clear that, Griffin, you can only ascend to a point. So regardless of when you started, the sooner you push up toward your genetic potential, the sooner you basically maxed out. It's not like that gap between you is going to always be there, because you're going to grow or improve at a rate faster than a more experienced, stronger rider is going to. When you get to a point where you're so close to what you can do based on, whatever limitations you're beset with, that your gains are going to be so hard fought. Getting a 1 or 2% bump in a 6-week training plan is going to be a big deal, whereas a newcomer can see a 10, 15, 20, 30% jump.
Yeah. I started when I was 24.
Okay. So you're perfect.
So yeah, I'm like in the middle, right? And I now, looking back, I don't know if other people had these thoughts, but I see people that join like at the local road race series or mountain bike series, and I see him racing in the C's, and I go, oh, he'll be with us in a year. You know what I mean? Like you can tell, like, and it's an athlete that wants it really bad, so they train enough. And then they learn enough to be able to execute well, and they get there. And you would think that, like, I'm 31 now, so you would think that, saying that person will ascend to our level in a year seems a bit crazy. But like you said, you kind of reach a point where the circumstances in your life limit your ability to grow, whether that's your physical abilities, whether that's the stress or different responsibilities you have in life. But you reach a point where you're capped, kind of, right? And then you can change that, of course. It's not like you're capped forever. Yeah. But in most cases, you kind of hit this point. And when you look at like local racing, it's kind of rare to see that one guy is substantially faster. In the majority of cases, you have a healthy group that's kind of toward the front, right? Maybe there's one person that's faster, but it's not like it's really strung out at the front. It's usually a group of people that are kind of at that level. So I feel like you don't have to think of yourself at a disadvantage. Maybe that helps you. Like you've got like the fader or the hater fighter attitude, like where you need to have some sort of opposition like that. But I think that you don't need to think of yourself at a disadvantage at all, especially in a sport like cycling when we're talking about endurance sport.
Yeah.
in different sports, when you're talking about like a lot of like pretty severe action sports, that's a different deal.
Yeah,
right?
that gap is not a hard set thing. It's not always going to be the gap between you. That gap's going to narrow, plain and simple. They can only progress at a certain rate, and you can progress at a faster rate. You know, again, there are certain things you'll come up against. Maybe this is a rider who can train 15, 20 hours a week, and you're a rider who can train 8 to 10. So some things will factor into it, but the fact is, given the same circumstances, you can probably ascend to the same heights they can. I mean, there's certainly a genetic component too that could limit you, but you won't know until you start to really get into it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So his question though about any tips trying to increase your ability to increase your TSS each week. And the first thing that comes to my mind is consistency. Building durability, and I mean, that's kind of a term that's more commonly applied to running, whereas you have to strengthen connective tissues. But to a lesser extent, it definitely applies to riding. That's why sweet spot work or base period training is often referred to as training to train. You're trying to set a strong foundation in place so that you can do the harder stuff, so that you can escalate the training load without overdoing it, etc. But the ability to increase your TSS comes with a ton of consistency, and often enough, and I don't mean to sound discouraging, but we're talking years of it, not just a couple of tightly structured seasons or a season, but years to really push your body to the heights that it can actually reach as an endurance athlete. Yeah, it takes a long time. And I've noticed when I look back at my training history and I'm looking at my my training stress graph over time, I see that when I was most consistent, that's when my PRs started to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like that's when I see those FTP changes. That's when they were increasing. It's just consistency for me is a key thing. And when I don't mean that if you're 200, training stress points a week, that now next week just start always riding at 400. I mean,
just make it happen, because it doesn't.
Keep doing 200 for quite some time.
Yeah, if you were to look at a multi-year TSS chart, you would see, way back, 5 years ago, say you're a new rider 5 years ago, the training loads that would put you in a dark place come the end of that 3-week cycle are nowhere near, are so far below what you can do now. Over that multi-year trajectory, the stress that your body learns to handle, it's really quite amazing.
It compounds.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting. I mean, I hear this a lot with Olympic athletes, because they're working on like whether it's like a 16-year plan, an 8-year plan,
cycle,
a 4-year plan, where they're basically like, no, I don't have to set the world on fire this year. It's in 4 years, or it's in 8 years, or it's in 16 years,
they have
right?
a 4-year training cycle. I mean, they may be looking multiple Olympics ahead, in which case it becomes an 8, a 12, a 16, whatever. But 4 years. So, we look at base build specialty. They're looking at year 1, 2, 3, 4. It's
substantial.
It's a gradual process.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else to add?
I would say one of the things is as a newer rider, you're going to be able to get pretty fast, and your future peaks will be higher. But you can get pretty fast at the beginning. You won't be able to hold on to it for as long. So if you feel like you're going really good and then you start really coming down from that, take the break and then come back and start again.
That's a proper warning, because you get riders, I mean, even the most seasoned riders, experienced riders, get that a little bit of momentum, and they start to see, wow, I'm having a really good season. I'm going really well. And they just push it harder until the wheels come off the wagon. And then it's...
then they quit cycling.
Exactly. Yeah, so definitely as soon as you start feeling like you're like, man, I've never been this fast. I'm doing great. And then if you feel that kind of degrading a little bit, take the break.
Pay attention to it.
You'll come back even faster if you take the break now, and in 3 months, or after 2 weeks off, you come back and start training again. It's what your body needs to do over and over and over, especially at the beginning.
It's cyclical, ebbs and flows. Just get used to that.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Pete.
And if you like this video, you should subscribe to our channel, because there's a lot more where that came from, and you can give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, if there's something you didn't like, give it a thumbs down. And if you would have done something differently, let us know in the comments below.
Absolutely. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, you should head over to TrainerRoad.com. It works. That's how Pete's fast.
Yeah, 100%.